Locking down the middle of the day, live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. Means we're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. I hope that work week's in the rearview mirror. If not, we will get you to the finish line here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Taylor Sharp and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and we have got a lot to get to over the next hour. Preston Guy, TigerBait.com. Peyton Houston's putting on a show at Elite 11. Got some news with LSU recruiting this weekend, some potential flips from the Lone Star State, potentially some intel on the current roster, as well as quarterback recruiting down the line. So lots to get to with Preston from Tiger Bait here in 15 minutes. I've got a summer baseball update. How are the Tigers progressing on Cape Cod and out west? There's one transfer who lit it up this week. We'll talk about that in 30 minutes. I still got to talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks. We'll do that at 1:45. That'll conclude our series on LSU's 12 opponents on the season. Bill Connolly's got a great SEC preview up on ESPN.com. I'm going to do the SEC portion of that at 2 o'clock. We're going to talk about LSU here in a second. Chris Marlar is going to jump aboard an hour and 15 minutes from right now. He spent the morning in lovely Thibodaux, where I'm sure the air conditioner was on full blast out there at the Manning Passing Academy. A lot of stars from around the world of college football were there. Chris was there. I know he talked to some incumbent quarterbacks from the Southeastern Conference, so we'll get a bit of an update from Chris coming up at 2:15. That's plenty to do. Let's start it with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
I enjoy Bill Connolly's S&P Plus stories on ESPN.com. You got to take them for what they're worth. They're going to put objective numbers in front of you. You can quibble back and forth with them if you would like. I don't take it as gospel. I take it as information that is oftentimes fascinating and sometimes revealing as to what teams have objectively in terms of snaps, yardage, production, and he puts a formula together and he formulates wins and losses with it as well. And so I wanted to take a look at what he thought of LSU in his SEC preview that came out this week. We'll get to some of the other teams in the league in hour number 2. One of the things that jumped out at me is that the SEC produces the best S&P Plus rating every single year, and it's usually by a comfortable margin. This was a fascinating number that he laid in this piece at the top, and it's that 50% of the league games were decided by one score. Half the games in the league were decided by one score. That is stunning. Because college football is still a sport where the margins are big, right? Look at the NFL. The margins are tiny. Look at college basketball. The home court advantage is just massive. But that can mean that lesser teams rise up at times. In college football, you've got teams at the top of conferences that just dominate every year. Like Ohio State doesn't play close games with Rutgers. They don't play close games with Minnesota. Georgia doesn't play nail-biters with Mississippi State. They don't play nail-biters with the lower teams in the conference. Kentucky doesn't go to Athens and win. But you look at the SEC, and half the games are being decided by a score. I think that's an amazing statistic, and it leads college football. No conference matches that outside of Conference USA, which is right there behind it, and that's just an interesting footnote. But I wanted to hear what he thought about LSU. And you look at 2025 and recap it, the Tigers were a 7-6 football team, 3-5 in the SEC. And what surprised me, just from a top-of-the-head number, is that LSU returns 60% of its production last year. You think about this roster, and you think about a coaching change that takes place, an overhaul of the entire offense, and I think about, okay, all the quarterbacks left, tons of offensive linemen left, almost all the wide receivers are gone. That's a lot of folks to replace. And you would imagine it would be more production than 60%. But then you think about it, and you got 11 on a unit, right? Well, Trey'Dez Green was massively productive on offense. He's back. Caden Durham and Harlem Berry were your top two backs. They're back. Braylon Moore anchored your center position. He was in the middle of the offensive line. He started 12 games. I wrote about him for LouisianaSports.net this weekend. Now, he did miss all but one snap of Louisiana Tech, and he did go out in another game. He missed the Oklahoma game. There was time that he missed, but he started 12 games, and you did have a lot of moving parts on the periphery of the center. You were moving guys in and out at left tackle. Tyree Adams was in there, and Carius Kern was in there, and you threw DJ Chester out there at one point, and Chester was rotating at guard, and he was in there with Cohen Eccles, and Paul Mabinga was in there as well, and there was a lot of guys moving around, but Moore was a constant, and you look at Weston Davis, who was your starter all season at right tackle. You do have significant returning production there, and then defense has 60% of its production back. You got cornerbacks outside of Delane and Pickett and Woodland. You do have Devon Keys and Whit Weeks, who played a lot. You've got Tamarcus Cooley, who was out there a ton. Don McKinley played a lot. You do have guys that were out there a good bit. Now, Gabe Relaford's back, but he wasn't out there a lot. He obviously got hurt. Same goes for Dylan Carpenter and some of the other names. But, like, that's more production than I thought that LSU would bring back. And then, obviously, LSU brought in a huge transfer class, and that'll be baked into the numbers as well once you get to the projections for this year. And Bill Connolly went into LSU's projections for this year, and he's got LSU, as far as the SEC ranking, at 4th. He's got Georgia at the top, Texas at 2, Texas A&M at 3, and LSU at 4. And when I look at that, I look at the national rankings of the offense and the defense, and something stands out that I actually talked about earlier this week. LSU, based on the S&P Plus, projections on production that returns, portal guys added, what they've done elsewhere, the metrics that puts together, LSU has got on paper the number 22 offense in college football. Do with that what you will, but it's an objective matter that they put together with numbers, 22nd in the country. And you feel like, I think it's reasonable to suggest that if you take numbers on a page and you say they're 22nd, and at the same time, you would suggest that Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. have a pretty good idea what they're doing on offense, which I could walk the ballroom in a couple weeks in Tampa and ask 50 media members, do you think Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. know what they're doing on offense? I could ask 50 guys, and as long as I didn't bump into somebody from Oxford, I'd get 50 people that would go, yeah, they got a pretty good idea what they're doing on offense. So you figure if you've got the number 22 offense on paper, it's got a pretty decent chance to be better than that with the coaching that is not baked into this, right? That's offense. 22nd that you feel like could be coached better. Well, what's the defense? Second. Number 2 in the nation. LSU's defense entering this season. And that makes a lot of sense if you're going off objective data, right? Because Devon Keys was second in the SEC in tackles last year, and TJ Daugherty was first. That's just production. Whit Weeks was second in the SEC in tackles 2 years ago. That is production. Ty Benefield made 1 billion tackles at Boise State. Prince Williman has a lot of sacks to his name. DJ Pickett and PJ Woodland played a lot of football last year. Deshaun Spears had a lot of production for when he was on the field, especially with the interceptions against Florida. Had a lot of tackles as well. So there is a lot of production. Second on defense. Now, here's the interesting thing when I tell you that. It's that LSU is 22nd on offense and you feel like the coaching could be better, and they're second on defense. Well, what would that bake out into a win total on the S&P Plus? 8.5. Which means like 8-4 is like right on the table. And that is puzzling until you look at the league as a whole and you realize that you've got a league that plays 9 league games. So you've added a potential loss to everyone's schedule. You don't get that extra game against Rice. Now you're playing an SEC team. So that's going to mess with the numbers a little bit. And you've got a conference where you have a lot of games that are 50-50, that are not going to allow for that total to creep up higher because you're bunched in tighter than any league. And so I looked at the projections. There are 9 SEC teams. Count them, 9. Between a win-loss projection, a win projection, I should say, of 8.6 and 7.0. That's a win and a half. 9 of them. Texas, A&M, LSU, Bama, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Missouri, Florida. 9 teams between 7 and 8.6. Georgia's the only one above that at 9.8. And then below that threshold are the characters that you'd expect. South Carolina, Auburn, Vanderbilt, who's had better years than that, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Kentucky. And a lot of these teams have to play each other because there's 9 games. Everybody can't win them. So this is not gospel. I'm not here telling you that, there's Bill Connolly says LSU 8.5 wins, pencil them in for 8 and 4, 9 and 3. That's not going to be enough. No, I think that what they're saying is you've got as good a chance as anybody not named Georgia to get to Atlanta in the SEC championship game, which means you've probably gone at a minimum 7-2 in the league, and that gives you every opportunity to be in the college football playoff. You've got to outperform a little bit. You've got to win those 50-50 games that are by one score, which you've got more of than anybody to deal with in the country. But it also says at the same time that LSU is looking at a really, really quality roster based on production that's either returning or coming in. And I'll give you this for one piece, and I'll repeat this in hour 2 when I get back into the SEC portion of this. But keep in mind, the dead last on this list, 16th in the SEC, with a projected win-loss of 3.7, is Kentucky. That's one of your road games. 15th in the SEC, second to last, with a 3.8 win-loss, that's Mississippi State. You play them at home. Third to last, with a 5.0 win projection, Arkansas, one of your road games. So you play the bottom 3 teams in the league, and 2 of those are 2 of your road games in the league. That is a favorable draw. And might I add that you also play Auburn on the road, who is 5th from the bottom. So you're looking at an opportunity to go to the bottom of this league and take care of business on the road, which leaves the biggest, most important games you play, save Ole Miss, right down the street in Tiger Stadium. It's a big deal. Schedule appears to be slightly in LSU's favor. We don't know. Nobody was nailing Vanderbilt 2 years ago as a threat. Nobody really thought Vanderbilt was going to win 10 games last year. A&M popped up out of nowhere 2 years ago. You've seen teams shrink. LSU was a darling last year at this time and fell flat. So you never know. But based on the number that Bill Connolly's putting on these things, you got to feel like LSU's got a fighting chance this time of the year at least. We're off and running here on this Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Always brought to you by Cork's on Fridays. Looking for a late lunch, swing on by Government between Foster and Jefferson. Get some great crispy fried catfish, jumbo Gulf shrimp. Check out the menu, corksfishandshrimp.com. They bring you our Friday shows, and Preston Guy, always a part of those. He's with TigerBait.com. Joins us now to talk some Tiger football. Preston, how are you?
All right, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well for me. It sounds like it's going pretty well for Pop Houston on the Camp 7-on-7 Elite 11 summer football circuit. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Pop stock continues to rise, man. And I've been talking with people in the know about, people who do quarterback evaluations much better than I do, professionals in the sense. And everybody just continues to tell me one consistent thing. If this guy had a 6 in front of his height, he would not only be a 5-star, he would potentially be the number 1 player in the country. I mean, this guy has, he reads the field well. He has put up, powerhouse numbers there at Evangel. He, in the May camp, the end of May camp with the Elite 11, Rivals named him the most accurate arm at the camp. And then yesterday he wins the long throw competition, heaving the ball 67 yards. So we're talking about among the nation's top quarterbacks. He's got the strongest arm, most accurate arm, and it does nothing but put up gaudy numbers on Fridays. So, I think his stock continues to rise. We're going to see him go up the rankings. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be in contention for that 5th star. We have seen guys in that 6-foot area. He's a good 5'11". We have seen guys like Bryce Young in the past, Tua Tagovailoa at that height mark, get to that 5th star. We'll see if Pop Houston is capable to do it. He just continues to shine. I think he's got a real decent shot of being named the Elite 11 MVP at the camp later today.
And you look at LSU recruiting the quarterback position, and we're still trying to get a feel for how Lane Kiffin wants to put the entirety of the roster together between portal players and high school players. And you look at what they've got on campus with Levitt and Longstreet.
Yeah.
And then you look at Houston right behind them. But they're not stopping there in terms of trying to develop a pipeline of young quarterbacks, it sounds like.
No, they've actually had 6 of the top 18 quarterbacks in the country on campus this summer, or since April, I should say. And LSU's, it's kind of gone under the radar. I've got a great piece on this Inside Debate right on the front page right now if y'all want to get more details. But it's absolutely gone under the radar with the flurry of 10 commitments in 30 days LSU has gotten. But Charlie Weiss Jr. and Dane Stevens, they are not playing around when it comes to their quarterback recruiting. I mean, they landed that portal class, which featured Levitt, Husan Longstreet, and Landon Clark, which I think we were happy with all 3 of those guys. And then they came in and, retained Pop Houston. Keeping him committed through a coaching change wasn't guaranteed. But, actually, those guys were the first ones to give him an SEC offer. Well, now they're pushing for a litany of guys. I've got all 6 listed on the side. He's going to go down. But I can tell you, looks like LSU's making really good progress from 2 guys in particular, Trace Hawkins and Donald Tabron out of Detroit, Michigan. I mean, it looks like LSU is getting some good, substantial progress. Now, these are quarterbacks, out-of-state quarterbacks in particular, tend to not want to pull the trigger super early in the process, although Peyton Houston did a year ago. But LSU's making some real good headways with these guys. I mean, it's definitely starting to look like they've got LSU looking like a hotbed, a quarterback destination school for high school prospects wanting to come be a part of this, Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss offense.
And that's interesting because he talks about wanting to get his money on the field and wants to pay guys who are going to play, and freshman quarterbacks don't play a lot. So how do you digest that approach when you consider the guys that he brought in at Ole Miss were largely guys out of the transfer portal?
Well, hopefully it's that they're so, they find your system so appealing that, they give you kind of a discount, so to speak.
Okay.
I still think you need to sign a quarterback every single year, right? You're going to lose guys to the portal. You're going to take guys from the portal. I think, if you lose a quarterback in the portal, you need to replace one from the portal. Look, the real answer here is, right? If you look at the top 10 players in the NFL draft, 2/3 of the first round is still homegrown talent, guys you sign out of high school. Right now, 1/3 of portal guys being in the fourth round means you absolutely can find guys. Fernando Mendoza, number 1 draft pick, was out of the portal, right? So I think you're going to need to do both. I think that they are going to try to land a top quarterback every single year out of high school, but I don't see them pulling up like a Bryce Underwood type offer for any guy. I don't think they're going to shovel out, $12 to $20 million for a high school kid who hasn't proved anything.
Speaking of high school
last season, Michigan kind of learned that the hard way last season.
No doubt. Speaking of high school recruiting, LSU's on a ridiculous heater in June. Kind of cooled off a little bit this week in terms of commitments, but it sounds like there could be more coming this way. Do you expect some good news over the next 72 hours to 4 or 5 days?
I don't know about it's a dead period right now.
Right.
So I don't know if I expect any quite that soon, but I mean, they're definitely not done. I mean, they are still big game funding. They're still looking to fill this class out. They have 14 commitments. They average 16 at Ole Miss. And the number of guys that they are going after for this 2027 class, I don't particularly see that slowing down anytime soon. If you want to go to the the big name guys that are interesting. I mean, Easton Royal, I think they've made some really good shape. And in fact, Grant Shastry had a piece on our site earlier this week where, talking to sources inside the situation, they believe that if Easton Royal had to make a decision today, he doesn't. But if he did, he would probably flip to LSU from Texas. Also, Florida is still there for him, according to those sources. So, that's going to get juicy, but I expect that one to go to signing day. I think he's committed to Texas early. He doesn't want to go back and forth. I think he's going to wait until he's locked in to make a call. Also, another guy to watch out for is Jalen Brewster, who seems like the number one player in the country. Seems like every morning he's waking up and putting on LSU gear and posting workout videos in LSU gear. I don't know that necessarily means everything in the world, but LSU's very high on him, and you're definitely going to want to keep an eye on that one. I could also see that one stretching out either to the beginning of football season or signing day.
Could just be some leverage to those Texas Tech pockets, which are relatively deep. We'll have to see. Speaking of big time, 5-star, number one player in the nation type defensive lineman, Lamar Brown, one of those. He's now enrolled at LSU and here for the summer. And the question's kind of been, where does he profile? Where does he help quickly for the next LSU defense? He's thought to be on the offense, thought to be on the defense. Is he an interior player, exterior player? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I got some insight, some intel on this and put it on our board this morning. Lamar Brown, there's been questions. Okay, is he going to play offensive line? Well, the old coaching staff said no to offensive line, but who knows what the new one is? Maybe they see earlier play time because certainly there's way more depth on the defensive line than the offensive line, so maybe he can get in a chance to compete at guard or maybe beat out Weston Davis for right tackle. But in getting my intel, looks like they are going to keep him on the defensive line. They're going to play him primarily as an edge rusher, right? That makes sense, too, because you think about it, Deuce Gerald and Richard Anderson, they looked really good in spring ball at defensive tackle. It's going to be tough to keep those guys off the field. In addition, you've got two veterans at defensive tackle, so you're kind of really set at defensive tackle. And then at edge rusher, you've got Gabriel Relaford, who tore his Achilles. He's going to be out, so you have two veterans there, Jordan Ross and Prince William Ellen. It looks like he's probably going to be the first one rotating in for those guys, right? But he does kind of have that body build where he can scoot in and play defensive tackle. I'm hearing that they're going to use him on third down situational, pass rushing situations. They're going to slide him in at defensive tackle as well.
He's obviously an incredible athlete. We'll see what they're able to get out of him as a true freshman. Preston, guys, with us on Fridays from TigerBait.com. Preston, we appreciate the time. Have a great weekend, man.
All right, thanks for having me.
He is Preston Guy every single Friday here on the Hunt Palmer Show. All right, I wrote a piece at LouisianaSports.net on that I write every Friday during the summer, updating the summer baseball statistics for the LSU guys. And it's always interesting because I don't really pay attention to it from Saturday through Thursday. I just pull it up on Friday and see what's happened over the last week. I'm not grinding every box score from the Cape Cod League, I promise. I am sick. I'm not that sick. But one of the transfers has had a monster week, and one of the LSU pitchers has really done a great job, but that might not be the best news for LSU. I'll tell you how things have gone over the last week in summer baseball, including what William Patrick's up to out west. We'll do that when we come back.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
I'll remind you about my friends over at Lifetime Roofing. Check them out online at lifetimeroofingla.com, lifetimeroofingla.com. It's in the name. They certainly do roofs. They can come do an inspection. They can do a tune-up to fortify your roof. They can certainly get you a new roof as well. But that's not all that Lifetime Roofing does. They do professional installation of gutters. They do professional installation of windows, siding as well. So if it's on the exterior of your home and you're looking for a freshening up, Lifetime is happy to help you out with that. They've got an in-house department that can handle financing for you. If you're looking to finance over 18 months, they can do it at 0% if you qualify for that. If you do need a new roof at some point and you've got a sizable deductible, whether it's 2% or got a larger roof and you're thinking maybe you want to pay that a little bit over time, they can do that, and they can handle the deductible in financing as well. So check them out online at lifetimeroofingla.com. It's a roofing company you can trust. The owners are from right here in the capital city area. They can help you out in South Louisiana, and they know this part of the world. They've lived here their entire lives and understand that oftentimes when roofers are called in, that there is a significant situation, whether it's a weather event or something else. And so they know they're here to serve. They care about this community, and they'll be here for the long haul. Check them out online at lifetimeroofingla.com, lifetimeroofingla.com. All right, just taking a look at LSU's baseball players as they participate in summer ball leagues. This is certainly not something that I put a ton of stock into in terms of numbers, but I just want to keep tabs on things, and I feel like I can pass it along to you. Is probably not something that's readily available to you and not something you're going to hear on a lot of other shows on this station if you're a person that listens for a lot of the day. So just a quick kind of rundown on where things are going. LSU has got 6 players on Cape Cod, best I can tell. Cape Cod statistics are not the most reliable. They had the wrong Cerna listed last week. It's a guy that had hit a home run. It was Texas's catcher instead of LSU's Omar Cerna. So just it's not the most reliable. I wouldn't swear in court on any of these statistics, but I do think that they're reasonably correct. It shouldn't be that difficult for Cape Cod to produce statistics, but sometimes it is. But Reagan Ricken is somebody that I'm excited to watch pitch next year at LSU, and I'm excited that he got a chance to go up on Cape Cod. You're facing some really good hitters on Cape Cod. You also are in a pitcher-friendly league because they use wood bats, and the fields are sizable. There's not a lot of home runs that are hit on Cape Cod. So Ricken's had 2 starts. I think he's going to make 1 more, and they're abbreviated. Nobody's throwing 145 pitches on the Cape or anything. There are 2 3-inning starts for Ricken thus far. So it kind of reads like one outing, right? He's got 6 innings of work this summer, 7 hits, 4 runs, only 3 of them are earned, and 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. I think that's a really nice line. His first outing was better than his second statistically. I haven't certainly seen all of them, but I think Reagan Ricken's got a chance to be a good pitcher for LSU in his time in Baton Rouge. And so off to a decent start. I think he'll get 1 more start. Santiago Garcia is having a wonderful start to his summer, and this is really not a developmental summer for him headed back to LSU, we don't think. I believe Santiago Garcia will sign and begin his professional career, and he's certainly putting on a great audition for professional organizations right now. 7 1/3 innings this summer, 3 hits, no runs, 4 walks, and 6 strikeouts. So really good work for Santiago Garcia this summer. Another pitcher from LSU who's really trying to put himself out there for the scouts is Gavin Guidry. His summer has not gone as well. 9 1/3 innings pitched. He's given up 7 runs on 9 hits, given up a pair of homers, hit 2 guys and 4 walks, does have 8 strikeouts. So Gavin sat here in studio and said he was looking to potentially sign. He had been at LSU for 4 years, did not anticipate being a 4th-year player, really not even a 3rd-year player at LSU. He thought he could play 2 years and move forward. He's getting older, and he wants to play big league baseball, so he'll try to get drafted and signed, but just a matter of whether or not somebody takes him in a 20-round draft. Now to the guys that will be coming back offensively for LSU, or coming in, I should say, because these are all transfers. Dawson Park is 3 for 15 on the summer. He does have 3 doubles. That's good. Shows bat speed, shows the ability to drive the ball. His on-base percentage is .400 up there on the Cape. He's gotten hit once and walked 4 times. 4 strikeouts in 15 at-bats, which is 20 plate appearances. So I think he's been okay on Cape Cod. Bino Waters has had an okay start as well. He's 4 for 21 on the summer. He's got a couple of RBIs and 7 walks. So his on-base percentage is up there over 400 for Chatham. And then this is the guy that's gotten really hot. If you remember, if you were listening last week, LSU had a player, Jason Wax, who was 0 for 15 to start Cape Cod play. Well, he turned around after an 0 for 15 and went 9 for 16 this week on an absolute heater, had 3 doubles, walked a couple of times, drove in 3 runs. He also stole 2 bases, which I liked. So he's got his batting average, which he started 0 for 15, and his Cape Cod batting average is now .290. So if last week you were listening to me going, wait, this guy we brought in who's been playing on Tulane schedule against that competition went up to Cape Cod where the pitchers are actually good and draftable and went 0 for 15, what have we done? Well, I can't promise you he's hitting 340 next year, but he did have a monster week with a wooden bat against really good pitching, going 9 for 16 this week, so that's really, really good for him. William Patrick's statistics did not change this week. I don't know if he has come home. I don't know if he's a little bit banged up. I'm not sure why he doesn't have any statistics updated, but Jack Ruckert's on his team, and Jack's were updated, so it stands to reason that Patrick may not have played this week. I'll look for a reason why, but I don't have one. But Jack Ruckert has had a nice start to his Pacific Empire League summer. He needs to play a lot. Ruckert has a 308 batting average thus far. He's also walked 16 times. So his on-base percentage this summer is 517. It's a very, very high number. Low strikeout number, just 3 strikeouts in 39 at-bats. If you add in the walks, you're looking at about 55 ABs, and he's only got 3 strikeouts. So Jack Ruckert's handled the bat pretty well. I will say this. I'm a little dubious of the huge walk totals for Patrick and Ruckert in this Pacific Empire League that I don't know a lot about. I've got a pretty good handle in the Northwoods League, in the Cape Cod League. Obviously, if you go play in the MLB Draft League, like there's some real projectable players there. I don't know anything about the Pacific Empire League. I've never seen LSU players go out there, and these massive walk totals are a little bit troubling, but playing is a good thing, and those guys are. As far as defense goes, and I think this is fairly important, Dawson Park, the transfer from Texas State, has played 16 innings at second and 22 innings at short. He has not played third base, which is a little bit interesting because don't we think he's going to be the third baseman? Like that's what I think. Milam's going to be the shortstop. And then you kind of look at what you've got, and it feels like maybe he plays second, but I tend to think there's a pretty good chance that he is the third baseman on this team, and you're looking at a guy that has not played that at all in this summer. Now, that's not the end of the world. Fielding ground balls is fielding ground balls and working on your hands, and there's benefit to playing shortstop no matter what you're going to play in the infield because it allows you to move. It does test your arm. You got to make plays going both ways, and so it's just you're fielding ground balls, and they've got a whole fall to get him used to a new position if that's something they want to do. But just felt like he would probably play a little bit of third base and hasn't done that. Jack Ruckert has played shortstop and second base as well, and I think there's a decent chance that he will be the utility infielder on this coming team for LSU. So that's just a look at what the guys are doing this summer on Cape Cod and out west. There are some LSU signees that are playing in some summer leagues, but I'm not going to publicize a lot of that right now because we don't know who's going to make it to campus, and I just don't feel like it's worth clouding everybody's brain with statistics from leagues you've never heard of and players you've never heard of, quite frankly. You know who all those guys are. I just laid out. So that's why I went ahead and made those the priority in this segment of it at LouisianaSports.net. If you're driving around and would like to get eyes on some of these statistics, you can do that at the website. It's up there for free on the homepage at LouisianaSports.net. So we'll follow along week by week until guys start to come home. Reagan Ricken's about to come home. I don't expect a lot of those guys to play the entire summers on the Cape. A lot of guys will go up there and get 15, 20 games over three or 4 weeks and then come on home and get off their feet for a little bit. Because keep in mind, they did kind of go right from their season, then take maybe a week, 10 days off, and then go up there and start playing. So it's been a long time. They've been playing games on their feet since the middle of February. It's a long time. So they won't all play the duration of it. But I'll keep tabs on it as long as players are playing, and we'll continue to talk about it on Fridays here.
Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Need insurance? How about the Highland Insurance Group? Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. You can reach them at highlandig.com. They're happy to help. They are a team of experts. You know, there are a lot of insurance agents, and you've got your pick of the litter. The Highland Insurance Group differentiates itself based on their technical knowledge, their ability to make sure their clients are protected. Most clients are concerned with cost, and they understand that, the Highland Insurance Group. They understand how important it is to place the premium in the right spot, and they've got dozens of carriers they're contracted with. They know who likes what risk, and they know who offers the best rates. And they'll make sure that they make that a priority. But they're also going to make sure your business is taken care of. Do you know how much coverage you have for a cyber attack or what that covers? Do you know how much EPL insurance you need or what your umbrella limit has to be? Do you know how your building got valuated properly or whether or not you've revisited your business interruption limits based on the revenues that you've got, the expenses that you incur? All these are vital to making sure the insurance responds properly. And the last time you want to look at that is after something's happened. Am I covered for that? You'll know if you work with the Highland Insurance Group. So check them out online at highlandig.com. They're based here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide. Contact Jonathan Carver and the team at the Highland Insurance Group online at highlandig.com. All right, let's wrap the hour talking about LSU's last game of the 2026 season. That is, again, now the Arkansas Razorbacks. Of course, LSU and Arkansas got together Friday after Thanksgiving for for a lot of years there. And then once Texas A&M and Missouri jumped into the league, Arkansas got paired with Missouri, LSU got paired with Texas A&M. That started back in 2013, and we've had it that way ever since. And I don't really care about the date of the game. I do like the fact that Arkansas is on LSU's schedule because I don't think Arkansas is going to be very good. And that's important to me when you consider that Bama's generally on the schedule and A&M looks like they're going to be pretty damn good, and Ole Miss has got things cooking a little bit, and you always got to play either Texas or Tennessee or Georgia. Like, I'll take it. I'll take a weekend with Arkansas. If it comes in the last weekend of the year, I'll take it. Now, the hiring cycle was explosive in the SEC this year. All eyes were on Oxford, Mississippi. Could Ole Miss keep Lane? Was LSU going to get him? Florida's trying to jostle for position there, and he picks LSU, and then boom, all of a sudden Florida gets Summerall quickly, and Ole Miss reacts, and they go with Pete Golding, and Auburn's kind of sitting there going, well, we'll figure this out, and they end up with Alex Golesh. And I kind of think Arkansas looked around and went, well, I know what we're supposed to do here. We didn't get any of these big names. How's the Silverfield dude over at Memphis? We'll take you. Because, like, his record at Memphis was not outstanding. You're talking about a team at Memphis that never finished second in conference play under Silverfield, like never got second place in their league. His conference record in Conference USA at Memphis was 27-21. Like a few games over 500. Now they did beat Arkansas, which may have been the ticket. But I would suggest that this is an underwhelming hire. I would also suggest that they've made a couple of really good hires in the last 20 years that have not worked for different reasons. Like Bobby Petrino was a great hire, and he brought them to number 3 in the nation, and they came to Baton Rouge at 10-1, ranked 3rd in the country in 2011. It just so happened the two best teams in the country were in their division, and they lost to Alabama in Fayetteville, and they lost to LSU in Tiger Stadium, and they couldn't get where they would like to go because those two teams were better. But Petrino had them cooking, and then he wrecked his motorcycle, or so we think. He might have just gotten beaten up. But that's a different time, different place. But then they hired Brett Bielema, right? Who had huge success at Wisconsin. Rose Bowls, plural. And now you look at Illinois, like, they're pretty good. And Bielema had his first team go 3-8 because they were awful. And they brought him to 7-5, and they beat Texas in that bowl game. And then they went to 8-4. And, like, things were moving in the right direction. It looked pretty good. They were running the ball with Alex Collins and big physical offensive line, Dan Skipper and the crew. They looked good. And then they went 1-7 and fired him. And then they're trying to recapture. They hired Chad freaking Morris, who won no games. He won no SEC games and got fired. And Pittman started strong in the COVID year, and they were so bad, and they won a couple of games, and then they were okay second year, and then it kind of petered out, and they had to make a move. And so now you go with Silverfield. And he's got to figure out who his quarterback's going to be. He's got two options, KJ Jackson, and AJ Hill. Jackson is a homegrown Pittman Petrino product. He was a 4-star recruit in 2024, played in 6 games over 2 years. He's a good athlete. He's left-handed. He can run around a little bit. And they got AJ Hill, who was at Memphis, where he was actually the number 4 quarterback in high school in the nation when he signed at Memphis. That's what ESPN thought of him. He's 6'4". He's a good athlete. They got 2 guys who are good athletes back there that are gonna be taking the snaps, and they haven't figured out who it's gonna be. I would suggest, based on reading some reports from Fayetteville, that it sounds like KJ Jackson is the likely guy, but AJ Hill does have a relationship with Ryan Silverfield. That may matter. We'll see, but they got to find a quarterback, and then they've got Ron Roberts running the defense, and he's like falling into this category that I throw like Will Muschamp, John Chavis, DJ Durkin, like guys that are just popping up at every SEC school in sight. Chavis went from Tennessee to LSU to A&M to Arkansas. Durkin spent some time at Florida, and then he was at A&M, then he was at Ole Miss, and he's at Auburn, just bouncing all back and forth. And Ron Roberts was the defensive coordinator at Auburn, and then he was at Florida, and now he's at Arkansas. You'll remember him from his time as a head coach at Southeastern, and he was obviously at Louisiana Lafayette for a bit. But his defense wasn't any good at Florida last year. They were 12th in the SEC in scoring defense and 13th in total defense. So they weren't preventing points, and they weren't preventing yards. Oh, by the way, they were 14th in the league against the run and 13th in completion percentage allowed. They weren't really good at anything on defense at Florida last year, but either was the Florida offense, so maybe that was some of their fault for not keeping the ball away. But they cleaned house in Gainesville, and now he's in Fayetteville. To be clear, I don't think a lot of this coaching staff. I don't think it's a dynamic coaching staff, and I think it's really hard to get players to Arkansas. We thought that the NIL era with Tyson Chicken and Walmart and Jerry Jones and J.B. Hunt Trucking and all these massive entities that have ties to Arkansas that are headquartered in that state would matter, and it hasn't. Now, John Calipari is spending money, and Dave Van Horn did a press conference this week saying we didn't have the resources last year and people stepped up and now we do. So maybe they're just diverting funds elsewhere. But I don't think it's a dynamic staff. I don't think it's a football program that's committed to winning. And I think that this is likely to be a bottom feeder in the SEC for the next few years like it has been for the last few years. And for that to be on LSU's schedule this year moving forward, I'm good with it. I don't think they're going to be very good. Now, they may prove me wrong, but I doubt it because they haven't been very good for a long time. So this is a team that's going to be picked at or near the bottom of the Southeastern Conference. They'll be in a bucket with Kentucky and Kentucky and Mississippi State. And LSU plays all three of those teams, which we talked about in the first segment today. I don't think a lot of this Arkansas roster or coaching staff. So I feel like LSU's got a pretty good chance to go up there and win in the morning on the Saturday after Thanksgiving in Fayetteville. That's a look at LSU's entire schedule. We've done all 12 teams that LSU will play. Finish it up there with Arkansas. You can read about it at louisianasports.net, and you can check it out on YouTube, wherever you find your podcast at Hunt on LSU. We got 1 hour to go this week. We're going to start it off with Bill Connolly's SEC preview, and we'll check in with Chris Marler in 20 minutes. He was the Manning Passing Academy. Foster Sports Center, come back with us.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com. FabryChevrolet.com is that website. No, they've been at this for almost a year now, 10 months. They've been operating at Highway 61 in St. Francisville.